This episode is brought to you by Sterling Soap Company. How often do you think about your soap? Well, if you answered, not much, maybe you should. You see, a lot of what passes for soap in stores is technically not soap, according to the FDA's definition. It's full of lab-created chemicals and detergents because, well, it's cheaper to make. Now, what if you could buy natural soap made from natural ingredients like tallow, palm oil, coconut oil, and scented with essential oils, and for just a little more than you'd pay for grocery store soap? Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a wide variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, and cologne, there's a product and a scent for just about everybody. Check them out for yourself at sterlingsoap.com. That's STIRLING soap.com.
This is Basketball History 101 with Rick Loayza.
Welcome back to Award-winning Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network. I am your host, Rick Loayza, and this is the podcast where we bring to life some of the forgotten stories from basketball history. We are bringing old school basketball to a new school audience, and today we bring you the story of Yao Ming's unusual journey to the NBA. To put it mildly, it is never easy for any player to come to the United States from a communist country. Whether that is Arvydas Sabonis or Sarunas Marciulionis coming from the Soviet Union in the 1980s, or Vlade Divac from Yugoslavia in the 1990s, there are a lot of political and legal hurdles that must be cleared for something like this to happen. But the point of this episode is not the political implications of a player coming to the United States and then potentially reporting that experience back to their home country. No, rather today's story is specifically about Yao Ming and his specific hurdles that he had to clear in order to play in the strongest basketball league in the world. Yao Ming was born in 1980 in Shanghai, China. At his full height, he grew to be 7'6" or 229 centimeters. His father, Yao Zhiyuan, was a professional basketball player in China and stood 6'7" or 201 centimeters. His mother, Fang Fengdi, was the captain of China's women's basketball team and stood 6'4" or 193 centimeters. Yao Ming seemed destined to be a basketball superstar based on the genetics that he was born with. But this story is not going to go through Yao's childhood or his backstory. That is an episode for another day. By the time Yao was 19 years old, he had already been to the United States a couple of times to play in AAU basketball tournaments or other youth tournaments. He'd even gone to Paris to participate in an international Nike camp for 85 of the best youth players from around the world. And one of his counselors at that Nike camp was Tim Hardaway Sr. And according to Yao, he had never seen a player move that fast in his life. He knew that the NBA was playing at a different level and than anything that he had ever seen back in China. But he also found out that he had a legitimate chance to make it to the NBA. He was within just a couple of years of development, and he would be playing in the best league in the world. So at that age of 19, he was playing for his hometown Shanghai Sharks, which plays in the top level of Chinese basketball. Now, due to his age, he was of course the youngest player on the team by several years and one of the youngest in the entire league. It was at this time, when he was still 19, that one of the executives from the Sharks told Yao that he needed to declare himself for the NBA and go play in America. And Yao was not so sure because he felt that he was not quite ready for that level of play. He was not concerned that he would not get drafted, but he did not want to go to America to be a reserve player. He wanted to go to the NBA when he was ready to be an impact player right away. However, this executive, who has never been named even by Yao, had already set up a meeting between Yao and a sports agency from Ohio called Evergreen Sports. They talked to Yao and his parents for several hours about the benefits of coming to the United States and how financially rewarding it would be for Yao. They threw every argument that they had to convince Yao to enter the 1999 NBA draft. But Yao reports that everything about that contract was unusual. He knew that an agent contract is around 3 pages long, and by NBA rules, the agent cannot collect more than 4% of the player's NBA earnings. And this contract that he was looking at in 1999 was only a page and a half long and called for a full 33% of Yao's salary to go to the agency, and that included all income like endorsements, appearance fees, everything. The Yao family thanked Evergreen for their time and for making the long trip all the way to Shanghai, but Yao did not feel he was ready. Now, that unnamed executive was really putting pressure on Yao to sign that contract. He was calling hourly for the next several days to convince Yao to sign. Now, this is pure speculation on my part. I have absolutely no evidence for the next thing I'm going to say, but I am old enough and have been around enough to draw the conclusion that this executive was probably benefiting in some way from the people at Evergreen if he were able to convince Yao to sign that ludicrous contract. A contract that was not even legal by NBA rules. But the executive would not let up. He convinced Yao and his family to meet with Evergreen one more time. They agreed, and the Evergreen people kept them in that meeting until 3 o'clock in the morning. It became obvious that they were not going to let Yao leave that room until he signed the contract. So he did. And none of them felt good about it. Yao's mother said that it felt like they had sold their soul. But people from the Nike office in Shanghai found out about this contract. They were already working with Yao on a potential Nike contract. Well, the Nike people reported that contract to the NBA and the NBA Players Association. And after much legal consultation, the NBA told Yao that the contract with Evergreen violated all kinds of NBA rules and would not hold up in an American court. Evergreen was not even an approved agency to represent NBA players. You see, all NBA agents have to go through an approval process by the NBA Players Association to even represent players, and Evergreen had not done that, so any contract that they had with an NBA player would be automatically void. The NBA told Yao that the contract was illegal and he could cancel that contract anytime he wanted, and Yao did cancel it as soon as he was able. The entire contract was set up to take advantage of a player who did not know any better. Now, thankfully, Yao was able to avoid the consequences of it. Yao just knew that he was not ready for the NBA. At least, not yet. Now, this was also confirmed in 1999 when Yao's teammate from the national team, Wang Zhizhi, entered the NBA draft that year and was not selected until the second round by the Dallas Mavericks. At the time, Wang was a better player than Yao, and Yao knew it. But Wang would not play for the Mavericks for another year, and then when he did start playing, he barely saw the court. Wang only played in 5 games in his first year with the Mavericks and scored under 5 points a game. Well, that was all the confirmation Yao needed to understand that he needed more time to develop his game if he was going to go to the NBA and be an impact player right away. Well, this is a good place to take a break, and we'll be right back with Yao and his eventual move to the NBA.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
At the Sports History Network, we're all about sports yesteryear, and so we're so pleased to introduce you to Row One, an online memorabilia gallery and shop that brings your sports history to life anywhere. The Row One gallery includes over 5,200 gorgeously reproduced prints of team posters, game program covers, game tickets, advertisements, and more in baseball, pro and college football, pro and college basketball, and more. And any gallery item may be printed in a variety of sizes on wood, metal, canvas, acrylic, or poster paper. And in Row One shop, check out the thousands more of unique items with the retro and historical designs dating back to 1876, including t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, phone cases, mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com, ROW1, for access to the full Row One catalog and for gallery prints and gift items, plus get a 15% discount off all prints on the Row One Pictorium Gallery with coupon code SHN15. Follow the link on the show notes.
Hello, sports history fans. I'm Ross from the podcast Pigskin Tales. You're about to jump into another thrilling sports history moment, but first, let's dive into today's sponsor, just in time for the holiday season. Introducing Art of Words, the brainchild of word artist Dan Duffy from Philadelphia. Dan meticulously crafts stunning images by handwriting relevant words from some of the greatest sports moments in time. These unique, budget-friendly illustrations are the perfect gift, sparking cherished memories and capturing hearts. Choose from city skylines, sports, history, and musicians to find a piece for everyone. And here's the exciting part. For that sports fanatic in your life, gift them a piece of their favorite team or player's history. Art of Words tells a compelling story. Explore collegiate stadiums, each meticulously crafted with every football victory etched into words. Or venture into baseball stadiums, handwritten with every player from the team's illustrious history. My favorite on the site is Bryce Harper 2021 MVP year. Because I'm a big stats guy, I think that's one of the coolest things ever. Check it out. Don't wait. Order a print today for yourself and your loved one this holiday season. Transform your wall into a gallery of captivating art and surprise your family and friends with a print of their own. Use code SHN15 at artofwords.com for a 15% discount on your order in November and December. Visit Art of Words, where words magically transform into stunning art, evoking cherished memories and touching the hearts of those who you care about. Again, use the code SHN15 for 15% off at artofwords.com.
Welcome back to the show, and let us continue with the story of Yao Ming's strange journey to the NBA. As we mentioned before the break, an unnamed executive from the Shanghai Sharks was really pressuring Yao to sign with an American sports agency and go to the NBA. And he decided to stay in China a few more years until he knew that he was ready for the NBA. So, let us fast forward 2 years to the 2001. Yao had made huge improvements in his game and was NBA ready. He would definitely be a first-round pick, but Yao wanted to be the very first pick in the entire draft, and he was not quite there yet. At this point, Yao was the 2-time reigning MVP of the Chinese Basketball League and the 2-time playoffs MVP. He also led the league in scoring with 30 points per game and was the league's leader in rebounding and block shots. In other words, he was clearly the best player in China and had won every individual award there was to win in the Chinese league. But there was still some unfinished business in China. By 2001, he was ready for the NBA, and he had grown not only into a great basketball player, but also a vocal leader. He was communicating with his teammates like never before. He was calling out defensive switches and double teams. He was communicating on offense, guiding his teammates to where they should be on the floor and when to get him the ball in the post. He learned how to read the game and communicate that to his teammates. However, the Sharks had lost the finals 2 years in a row, and Yao really wanted to win the first championship in Sharks history before leaving for the NBA. Anything short of a championship would have been considered a failure. Now, during the season that would become Yao's final season in China, 2 new people enter the picture. One was a guy by the name of Eric Zhang. Zhang's family was also from Shanghai before moving to the United States, and he grew up in Wisconsin but still spoke fluent Mandarin. He also earned a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Wisconsin and a master's degree in business from the University of Chicago. And he was a basketball junkie. He was introduced to the Yao family through his girlfriend, who was a distant relative. The Yao family initially contacted Eric to get his perspective on Yao's decision to move to America to play in the NBA. Zhang used all of his prodigious skills as a businessman and negotiator to put together an elite team of people representing the fields of marketing, sports law, accounting, investing, immigration, and media consulting. He called them Team Yao, and their task was to make Yao's transition to the United States and the NBA as smooth as possible. Even though Zhang was not actually related to Yao, the Yao family announced that Eric Zhang was Yao Ming's cousin from America who was going to represent Yao in his negotiations to get out of his contract with the Shanghai Sharks and move to the United States and the NBA. Now, this was a vitally important move because in China, they believe that the government has the best interest of the people over some stranger from another country. But since Eric Zhang was introduced as Yao's cousin from America, it had a direct impact on negotiations and the perception of the move to Chinese basketball fans. I mean, who would have Yao's best interest in mind, the Shanghai Sharks or a family member? Now, this nullified any potential argument that the Sharks might have had to say that Zhang was just trying to take advantage of Yao. Now, the second person who was vital to Yao's move to the US was Bill Duffy, an American sports agent, who had lived in Taiwan for several years as a child. He was very comfortable with the language and the culture of China. Now, after many long conversations with Yao and his family, they decided to make Bill Duffy their official sports agent for Yao Ming, and Duffy was already approved by the NBA as he was already representing other NBA players. He was the perfect agent for Yao since he understood Eastern culture and was always sensitive to the Yao family and their comfort every step of the way. Now, the only thing left to do was to win the championship of the Chinese League in 2002. Now, as I said, the Sharks had been to the finals 2 years in a row, but lost. They had never won a championship before and were desperate to win one before Yao left. It was not exactly a condition of Yao's release from his Sharks contract, but it was definitely in the air that Yao needed to win if he wanted to get out of his Sharks contract and move to the NBA. And wouldn't you know it, the Sharks won 3-1 over the Bayi Rockets. The leadership of the Sharks could not have been more ecstatic. They were so excited that at the championship celebration, they announced publicly their thanks to Yao for leading them to their first trophy and that Yao was leaving China to go play in the NBA. And here comes another roadblock. The government of China suddenly announced that any Chinese player that wanted to leave China to play in another league had to be represented by a Chinese agent to negotiate his exit from his Chinese contract. The timing of this announcement came just a couple of weeks after Yao announced that he was leaving. So the government of China had to quickly put together a licensing exam to officially approve Chinese agents. Now, only 16 people showed up for the exam because it was so last minute, and only 12 of them actually passed the exam. These were the only 12 people that Yao could choose from to represent him in his exit from China. Now, it really seemed like new roadblocks popped up every single day, another problem that needed to be solved. The Chinese government was not going to make this easy for Yao Ming. In order to prepare for the draft, Eric Zhang decided to bring Yao to the United States to have private workouts with several NBA teams. Primarily, he worked out for the Chicago Bulls and the New York Knicks because they had sent scouts all the way to China to watch Yao play for the Sharks, and out of respect for the honor of being scouted, he returned that respect by working out for them. But this was before anyone knew the order of the draft. The draft lottery had yet to take place, so no one knew who was actually going to get the first pick. And as luck would have it, the Houston Rockets won the lottery and would get the first opportunity at Yao Ming. Now, this was a no-brainer. The Rockets were desperately looking for a big man to go with Steve Francis, their point guard. Team Yao was sure that the Rockets would draft Yao Ming, meaning that Jay Williams would fall to Chicago, who needed a point guard. So, as the commissioner, David Stern, stepped up to the podium on draft night, he announced the following. With the first pick in the 2002 NBA draft, the Houston Rockets select Yao Ming from Shanghai, China, and the Shanghai Sharks. You could actually hear a few boos from the crowd in attendance, but mostly you heard cheering. But unlike most top picks, Yao was not in the building that night. He was still back in China, where it was very early in the morning. Yao had many obligations that he still needed to complete for the Chinese government before he could leave for Houston. So he simply waved to the television camera from a hotel in Beijing and then did a short interview working through a translator. And with that, Yao Ming became the first player to be selected with the first overall pick to come directly from another country. And I know some of you might be thinking of Hakeem Olajuwon, who was taken first in 1984, and while he is Nigerian, he was coming from an American university, the University of Houston. And I'll never forget the answer to one of the first questions that Yao was asked when arriving in Houston. The question had something to do with expressing appreciation to his parents for their guidance and wisdom, as they were also basketball players. He gave one of the most mature answers that I have ever heard from a 21-year-old basketball player. He said, quote, "How does a flower thank the sun?" unquote. And in that moment, I knew as a fan that Yao Ming was going to be just fine in the NBA. He already had a wisdom that defied his age. Well, that is the roller coaster of a journey that brought Yao Ming to the NBA, where he played for 8 full seasons before retiring due to injuries. But he did make the All-Star team in every season that he played, which makes him one of only 3 or 4 players to ever do that. And today, he is a member of the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. Thank you for hanging out with us, and join us next week for another story from basketball history. That's next time on Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of Sports Yesteryear. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com to find out more about this and other sports history podcasts. If you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcast. And check out our page on Facebook. It's called Basketball History 101 Podcast. There you will find other historical posts as well as comments and discussion starters on today's game. I'll also announce there when new episodes come out. I want to thank my producer and editor, Jacob Loayza. Join us each week as we continue to mine the history of basketball for more great stories from the past. Take care, and see you soon.
The Sports History Network presents Who Invented This Sport?, a sports origins podcast that explores the birth and evolution of sports as diverse as basketball and bobsledding. Discover the inventors, innovators, and pioneers who brought sports to the world. Go to your favorite podcast provider to find Who Invented This Sport?, your sports origins podcast and part of the Sports History Network.